Hello everyone, this is Sean from Hammersim, bringing you the last game of the mini tournament I had at a friend's house. This time I got drawn against Dwarves, and it's a 1000 point game. This was the last round of the tournament. We had Lizardmen versus High Elves on table 1. I again drew table 2, so I'm fighting the Dwarves there, and the Dark Elves are taking on Warriors of Chaos on table 3. The Wood Elf player had to go home early, so that's a bye. Now, I know you're all sick of this terrain setup from looking at the previous two games, but here it is again. We got the two hills and a marsh, a standard fence, and a house. But this time, I get to deploy on the other side of the map. Once again, my army consists of 18 Graveguard. In that unit, there's a White King BSB. All the Graveguards have just hand weapons and shield. I didn't go great weapons because I couldn't afford it. I have a 26 strong zombie unit with my general level 3 necromancer in there, master necromancer. Then we have a 25 strong zombie unit. This time I've put my Wraith hero inside of that. I have a 5 strong direwolf unit who's vanguarded up, a Wraith hero who's by himself, and then another direwolf unit, 5 strong, also vanguarded. As for my opponent, he's got 25 Quarrelers with great weapons and shields. They have 2 characters inside that unit, a BSB Thane and a General who is a Runesmith. Next to that, there is a Organ Gun. On the other side of the map, he's got a Gyrocopter, and to finish it off, he's got a cannon with, I can't remember which rune, but it's inside the house. We go to roll for first turn, and despite the fact that he had a +1 to the roll, I end up winning, which is great for me because against any shooting army, you want to go first and reduce the distance between you and them as soon as possible. Now, I'm not allowed to charge with my wolf units because they're vanguarded, and any vanguard unit cannot charge in the first turn of the game. So I move my direwolf unit number 1 right up against his organ gun, so he can't fire at anybody except my direwolves, and then I move my direwolf unit number 2 past the fence, getting ready for a charge next turn. Everything else just moves straight up. In my magic phase, I end up going with all my dice for a 12-inch bubble Van Hells because I want to move my infantry as quickly up as possible. My opponent fails to dispel it, which is great for me, so my units move up again. In Dwarven turn number 1, he moves his Gyrocopter up alongside my Direwolves and ready for a breath weapon. The cannon fires at my general, and I pass my lookout sir roll, so no harm, no foul. I think maybe 4 or 5 zombies die, but that's fine with me. And the organ gun is forced to shoot at Direwolves and kills them all. Now the breath weapon from the Gyrocopter ends up killing only 1 wolf, so that's not too bad for me. His Quarrelers also have a few shots at my Graveguard. I think they only managed to kill 2 or 3, so again, not too bad. In my turn 2, I charge his Gyrocopter with my Wraith. I charge the cannon with my Direwolf unit. Now, I could have gone for a charge against the Quarrelers with my Graveguard then, but I didn't want them to stand and shoot, so all I do is move my zombie units right up, and then my Graveguard against his flank. So if he chooses to charge my zombies, I should have a flank charge against his Graveguard. But I'm now within 4 inches of his Quarrelers, which means even if he reforms next turn, he shouldn't be able to stand and shoot against me. In my magic phase, I ended up pulling off Raised Dead directly behind his 2 units, and I end up with an 11 strong zombie unit directly behind him, which I'm quite happy with. And in Dwarven turn 2, he reforms his Quarrelers so that they're facing my Graveguard. He then shoots at my Wraith with his cannon. He ends up hitting it and killing it outright. The organ gun turns around and fires at the zombie unit directly behind his lines, but he was only able to do about 4 or 5 wounds. In Vampire Count turn 3, I declare a charge with my Graveguard against his Quarrelers. He doesn't get his stand and shoot like I said before because I'm within my movement range. The zombie unit number 3 charges the organ gun, and my Direwolf charges the cannon again. I had forgotten to mention that in turn 2 in the close combat with the Direwolf and the cannon, he ended up winning combat, and my Direwolf had to step back 1 inch, so I had to recharge again this turn. Also, I forgot to mention that the Wraith ended up killing the Gyrocopter outright. You may be wondering also why I didn't charge my zombie unit number 1 into the flank of the Quarrelers. That's because I really don't know what sort of magical weapons those Dwarven characters are holding, so I didn't want to risk my general against that just in case. During my magic phase, I end up getting a bubble invocation off. It only healed my graveguard for a little bit because I didn't roll very well, but all 3 zombie units get quite significantly larger. In the close combat between the cannon and the direwolf, again I couldn't wound him at all, and he kills my direwolf with a crew. Here's a close-up shot of the hand-to-hand combat between the quarrelers and the graveguard. So I do kill quite a number of quarrelers because he elected to go for shields because I charged. So he didn't have the strength to kill my toughness 4 graveguard. He loses combat there, but because he's got the extra rank on me, he ends up getting steadfast leadership, which he passes no problems, and also he's got that BSB in there, so against Dwarven leadership he's got 2 chances at it, and there's no way they're going to fail. On the bottom there where the organ gun is going against my zombies, I don't kill any of the crew, but he kills 2 back. That's not too much of an issue though. I will be charging in with my other Khan Wraith shortly. During Dwarven turn 3, the only thing he's capable of doing other than close combat was to shoot at my general with a cannon. Again, I pass lookout sir, and he only kills a handful of zombies. And in Vampire Count's turn 4, I declare 1 charge with the Khan Wraith against the organ gun, so they're joining the fight with the zombies. I think I make a mistake here. I reckon I should have charged in with the zombie unit number 1 against the flank of his quarrelers, because my graveguard is getting quite low in number, but I was hoping to be able to get a magic invocation off so that I can heal them. However, during my magic phase, I don't roll very well for my winds of magic, and my opponent was able to dispel the invocation, so now my graveguard is in a fair bit of trouble because he's still got quite a bit of quarrelers left. Here again is a close-up shot of the close combat in that area. The organ gun gets killed by my Khan Wraith on one side and zombies on the other side. I do a fair bit of wounds to his quarrelers, but now he has switched to great weapons, so he's doing a fair few wounds to me back. I think we end up fairly even in that combat, but I'm hoping my graveguard can withstand another round. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen, because in Dwarven turn 4, he ends up killing all of the graveguard. He got a very good round off with a number of wounds, and then the combat resolution finished off my hero. So yeah, it was a fairly large mistake on my part not charging in the zombies, because I thought that I should be able to get a magic spell off, and it just proves that in this game magic is very unreliable. Not only that, but if I flank charged, I should have got the extra 3 rank bonuses from my zombies as well, instead of using my graveguard who had no ranks by this time. So after that combat ended, he reforms his quarrelers unit to face my general's unit expecting a charge. Vampire Count turn 5, I do charge my general unit in now because I need to break that quarrelers unit. I also charge in with the Khan Wraith against his flank and the newly risen zombie unit against the rear. And while I don't do too many wounds with my zombies, I do score a couple of hits with the Khan Wraith, and added to the flank charge bonus, the rear charge bonus, and all the ranks that I had, he had to roll insane courage to be able to hold. He ends up breaking. I chase him down with my first attempt with zombie unit number 3, and this is the way the game ended. My opponent decided to concede because I think we both thought that it's probably more interesting to see what's happening on some of the other tables than to play out another 3 turns of not much happening. So here's the points breakdown in the end. I ended up scoring just over 1100 points from his army, and he scored about 650 odd from mine. Now, as I said before, I did make a major mistake in that by not charging the flank with my zombie unit. It's just this phobia that I have where I'm worried that the zombie units will just cop an insane amount of wounds, and then the combat resolution pops my graveguard unit. But thinking back on the game now, I really should have just charged in, because he wouldn't have been able to get to his rank bonuses, and I probably would have been able to break him a turn earlier rather than losing my graveguard unit. But still, that was a fairly comfortable victory in the end. As far as the other tables are concerned, the High Elves were shooting the absolute bejesus out of the Lizardman army, but as soon as the Lizardman got into hand-in-hand, the tide turned real quick, and I think a couple of Croxigors as well as a Solrus hero ended up just smashing everything in the High Elf army. The Dark Elves also just shot the crap out of the Warriors of Chaos. I don't think anything even got to close combat there. The Dark Elves and the Warriors of Chaos then played a grudge match. We allowed the Warriors of Chaos player to remake his army. He ended up absolutely monstering the Dark Elf army. I think by the top of turn 3 it was game over because he's killed everything off the board. And yeah, so that's the way the tournament ended. So yeah, my Vampire Counts army ended up winning the tournament. Now this was a informal tournament, so there wasn't any specific points or calculations for anything like that. We just counted the number of victories and crushing victories, and because I didn't lose and I had the 3 victories, I ended up topping the table. Now I must admit, as I said in the first video of this series, I did design my army around the fact that I knew I was going to face 3 elven armies as well as a dwarf army, so I was hedging my bets that if I designed a army that was good against a shooting army, I should probably have a better than average chance of winning this tournament. And it ended up that I fought 3 shooting armies, and in each case I was able to kill most of their army before they shot me to pieces. So yeah, that worked out quite nicely to plan. I don't know how my list would have fared against the Lisbon or the Chaos army, but I might try and get a couple of mates back together and try my list against that the Lisbon and Warriors of Chaos list without any changes, and see how I go. Just some afterthoughts about this particular game as well as the rest of the tournament. I got extremely lucky in turn 1 to be able to not only get turn 1 but pull off a bubble Van Hells, which got my army 16 inches closer to his shooting army before he's got a chance to shoot. So that was a great help in keeping my army intact in that game. Having said that, I did make that big mistake of not charging with my zombies before, so that's a lesson learnt. I was quite happy with the way my army worked out in this tournament. I really like the fact that I can have small units of wolves to take on the early shooting, and then also harassing war machines. The zombies also ate a fair few shots, which left my graveguard intact to do the hand-to-hand combat as they're meant to. The Khan Wraith themselves were really good as well. They just are able to threaten war machines by themselves, possibly flank or rear charge when needed as well. So yeah, I was quite happy with the way the army performed. The other thought that I had throughout most of the tournament was how ineffective shooting is against undead, or at least relatively ineffective, because not only do I get to regenerate a lot of the wounds that I suffer from it, I can't panic. So a lot of the goodness of shooting, where you get 25% off a particular unit, you force them to do a panic check and you get them to flee away, all of that is just doesn't work against undead, which means yeah, I think I had an unfair advantage somewhat against heavy shooting style armies. And that's the end of the tournament report. I hope you enjoyed the 3 games that I presented for this tournament. If you have liked the video, please click like, or even better, if you can subscribe. That would be greatly appreciated. And until next time, I'm Sean from Hammersim. Thank you for watching.